you walked up and down upon the earth lately? I have. And I've examined man's wonderful inventions. And I'll tell you that in the arts of life, man invents nothing. But in the arts of death, he outdoes nature herself and produces by chemistry and machinery all the slaughter of plague, pestilence and famine. The peasant I tempt today eats and drinks what was eaten and drunk by the peasant of 10,000 years ago, and the house he lives in has altered as much in 1,000 centuries as the fashion of a lady's bonnet in a score of weeks. But when he goes out to slay, he carries a marvel of mechanism that lets loose at the touch of his finger all the hidden molecular energies and leaves the javelin, the arrow, the blowpipe of his fathers far behind. In the arts of peace, man is a bungler. I've seen his cotton factories and the like with machinery that a greedy dog could have invented if it wanted money instead of food. I know his clumsy typewriter, his bungling locomotive, his tedious bicycle, they are all toys when compared with the Maxim gun, the submarine torpedo boat. There is nothing in man's industrial machinery but his greed and sloth. His heart is in his weapons. This marvellous force of life of which you boast is a force of death. Man measures his strength by his destructiveness. What is his religion? But an excuse for hating me. What are his laws? But an excuse for hanging you. What is his morality? Gentility. An excuse for consuming without producing. What is his art? But an excuse for gloating over pictures of slaughter. What are his politics? Either the worship of a despot because despots can kill, or parliamentary cockfighting. I spent an evening lately at a certain celebrated legislature where I overheard the pot lecturing the kettle for its blackness and ministers answering questions. When I left, I chalked upon the door the old nursery saying, "Ask no questions and you'll be told no lies." I bought a sixpenny family magazine and found it full of pictures of young men shooting and stabbing one another. I saw a man die. He was a London bricklayer's labourer with 7 children. He left £17 club money. His wife spent it all on the funeral and went into the workhouse with the children the very next day. She would not have spent 7p on her children's schooling. The law had to force her to have them taught gratuitously, yet on death she spent all she had. Their imagination glows. Their energies rise up at the idea of death, these people. They love it, and the more horrible it is, the more they seem to enjoy it. Hell is a place far above their comprehension. They derive their notion of it from 2 of the greatest fools that ever lived, an Italian and an Englishman. The Italian describes it as a place of mud, filth, frost, fire, venomous serpents, all torture. This ass, when he was not lying about me, was maundering over a woman whom he once saw in the street. The Englishman describes me as being expelled from heaven by cannon and gunpowder, and to this day, every Briton believes the whole of that silly little story is in the Bible. What else he says I do not know, for it is in a long poem which neither I nor anybody else has ever succeeded in wading through. It's the same in everything. The highest form of literature is the tragedy, a play in which everybody is murdered in the end. In the old chronicles, we read of earthquakes and pestilences and are told that these showed us the power and majesty of God and the littleness of man. Nowadays, the chronicles describe battles. Over such battles, the people run about the streets yelling with delight and egg on their governments to spend hundreds of millions of money in the slaughter. whilst the strongest ministers dare not spend an extra penny in the pound against the poverty and pestilences through which they themselves daily walk. I could give you 1,000 instances, but it all comes down to the same thing. The power that governs the earth is not the power of life, but of death. And the inner need that has nerved life into the effort of organising itself into the human being is not the need for higher life, but for a more efficient engine of destruction. The plague, the famine, the earthquake, the tempest were all too spasmodic in their action. The tiger and the crocodile were too easily satiated and not cruel enough. Something more constant, more ruthless, more ingeniously destructive was needed, and that something was man.